Camille King works for Visit Mississippi. He was born and raised in Jackson and attended American University and Tougaloo College with a bachelor's degree in political science and international relations. He earned a law degree from Mississippi College School of Law with an emphasis in intellectual property and entertainment law. Kamel spent 10 years as an attorney for a 9-time Grammy-nominated group and was director of operations both for BlackBerry Records and Terminal Recording Studios. Kamel has since been an associate producer for tourism conferences, and he works for Visit Mississippi as the bureau manager for the Tourism Development Bureau, which manages the Blues Trail, the Country Music Trail, Freedom Trail, Writers Trail, and the state's rich music and cultural branding at trade shows. So you, without a doubt, can tell that he is the man with all the knowledge of all things trail related. Tim Moore is a lifelong resident of Philadelphia, Neshoba County, and he joined the Community Development Partnership in 2013 as the Chamber Main Street Director. He oversees membership, Leadership Neshoba program, Allies for Education, and other projects associated with the Chamber. As the Main Street Director, he oversees Ham Jam and other events throughout the year, and he works with downtown merchants. Tim also serves on the board of directors for the Philadelphia Neshoba County Arts Council. And just to give you a personal note, Tim was one of the first conferences that I went to in Philadelphia when I became a Main Street Director. That was 10, 12 years ago. He was one of the first people that I met, and we have worked together as colleagues, and I've learned so much from him. And Kamel and I have worked together in a number of capacities when I was the tourism director here and now at the state level. Both very supportive of not only tourism development, but creating strong places. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be really casual. We're just going to kind of have a conversation. So if you have a question in the midst of it, or you can't hear us, or need us to do something different, please just let us know. So I'm going to sit because my feet are killing me. So I'm excited, y'all. We talked about this session because Mississippi has really invested in their trails. And there has been this unique development in the last few years where trails are popping up in the downtown community. And you might think, well, yeah, okay, why? You know, why are they not at the birthplace? Why are they not at the residence? And the reason they're in downtowns is because they create a special sense of place. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. But what I want to start off with is I want Kamel to give you a little bit of just a general overview of the trail system, the different trail systems that the state has, and anything else that you want to add that I didn't tell about you.
Well, all right. How y'all doing today? All right. After a little bit of ice cream, hopefully you got a little sugar rush. But my name is Camille King. I totally am blessed and enjoy being the Bureau Manager of Tourism Development under the leadership of Executive Director Craig Ray. And my bureau is tasked with officiating, presiding over, maintaining, and marketing our music and cultural trails. And these trails, as Jennifer talked about, are the Mississippi Blues Trail, the Mississippi Country Music Trail, the Mississippi Freedom Trail, which is our Civil Rights Trail, and the Mississippi Writers Trail. So trails that honor and give homage, pay homage, and promote our blues legends, our blues history, our country music history, of course, our phenomenal writers, older and contemporary, and of course, Mississippi is and was ground zero for the civil rights movement. And so these trail systems have grown over the years. I can remember starting in my legal career and working with the Blues Trail and having no idea how when Governor Barber at the time and Craig Ray and others in the Blues Trail Commission started the trail, how it was going to explode. Working on the private sector, trying to help put together some things and promote it. I knew how important it was, but just what it has done for Mississippi, Blues Trail, Country Music Trail, Freedom Trail, and the new Writers Trail, it has just become one of tourism's most prized possessions and assets. Craig Ray actually came up with this term, and I think it is the best description. It is the world's largest outdoor museum because it spans throughout our state, Blues Trail is in 7 other states. Country Music Trail, I believe, is in 4 other states. Our Freedom Trail is centralized here, of course, and of course Writers Trail is about our Mississippi writers, and that is a new trail that is starting. But the Blues Trail is in 7 other states and in 4 other countries. So, you know, it really pulls together the heritage, love, and admiration and the infusion of our music and cultural history, and even now today, how it is, mood lighting. Is this how this is supposed to be? Oh, I guess not. Somebody hit the wrong switch. I thought it was about to get, the disco lights was about to come out. Right. And I know, Jennifer, that wasn't on the agenda. But as I was saying, just these trails, people from all over the world visit these trails. You are bound to see, when you are in possession in your community of one of these markers, somebody from any country on any part of the globe in your backyard, because they are passionate about our trail system. So that's just a quick start to what we'll be talking about.
And I'm glad that you mentioned the different states that it's in and the countries, because, you know, we're not all from Mississippi. So in a little bit, I don't want to get into it yet, we'll talk a little bit about some unique situations where the trail has actually been cross-promoted across different states. And it's been a really unique opportunity to work with different states in a capacity that we've never done before. But, you know, part of the mission statement of Mississippi Main Street talks about how, you know, our downtown communities are the most storied places in Mississippi. You know, they hold the history that everybody's seeking when they're looking to visit. That's where so many of the stories can be told from years and years and years. And so I find it really interesting that now, you know, here we have these trail markers telling these stories that you're talking about in these towns that are so full of history. Tim in Neshoba County is really kind of one of the first ones that I got involved in. I sit on the Country Music Trail Commission with Kamel and with Tim, and Marty Gamblin, who is a producer agent, long time, you know, music industry person, was honored. And I want Tim to tell you guys a little bit about the different trails that he has in his community and kind of what that has spurred, and how the trail has become a catalyst for development outside of anything trail related. So just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. In Philadelphia, we're really unique. We have Blues Trail. We have a Blues Trail marker, the Otis Rush, and that's actually in our office at the depot. And then we're also involved in the Freedom Trails, and our local tourism back. I think the Freedom Trails have celebrated 60 years. Back at their 40th anniversary, a lot of those stories from a lot of the women and men that lived through that time, tourism and the Neshoba Coalition got to realizing that those stories were fixing to be gone. So they got together and they created a Freedom Trail brochure with a drive-in tour, along with where all of the markers for the Freedom Trail are in Philadelphia and Neshoba County. We have a total, I think, of 5 Freedom Trail markers, and 3 of them are in downtown Philadelphia. And it just kind of gives you a chance. We can get you a guided tour, or if you're just passing through, like a lot of people from out of state, they're just coming through, like Jennifer said, and they just want to pick up the brochure and they want to travel it on their leisure. And then with country music, those are really unique markers, because a lot of times it's where the artist was born, but it may not necessarily be at their birthplace. For example, she talked about Marty Gamblin. He chose to put his in front of the high school where he got the love for music in band and everything. And so that's where that one was born, which just happens to be 3 blocks away from Marty Stewart's trail marker, where he decided to put his right across the street from the Ellis Theater, where he went and watched movies all the time, and also where at the age of 12 he boarded a bus to Nashville, Tennessee for Labor Day weekend and never came home. So that's kind of how that ended. And with Marty's, we did his in conjunction with his 50th birthday, and the Arts Council stepped in, and we did like a block party in the street dedicating the marker, and then went into the Ellis for a big birthday bash, kind of surprise birthday for him. So it's a way where you can kind of cross promote with all your other entities and organizations in your community, and you can make the celebration as small or as big as you want it.
So in Philadelphia, when we talk about Marty Stewart, Philadelphia is obviously known for Philadelphia, Mississippi, if you will, is also known for lots of festivals and the Neshoba County Fair. But, you know, Marty just has invested in the state so much. He is so keenly aware and so intent on telling the story of the talent that the state holds. And so he truly is a cultural ambassador for us. And in a unique way, it really has kind of spurred this crazy country music development in Philadelphia that has happened organically. So tell us a little bit about just, you know, the way it started, like from the ground roots with his storage all the way through what you have going on right now.
Sure. Well, Marty Stewart holds what is considered the largest independently owned country music collection in the world. And he has reached the point of his time where it was time to do something with it other than keep it there. And he approached Philadelphia, and that's where we're beginning the Congress of Country Music. But Marty's began, his knowledge of country music is vast. If you've ever been around him, he knows more stories, and he can start at Jimmy Rogers and he can go all the way through. If you saw the documentary from Ken Burns that Ken Burns did on country music, Marty had over 200 interview segments in there where he helped Ken Burns with that research. And Ken and Marty are so close and became such a fond friendship that all of Ken's research, everything that he used for that documentary, it's in Philadelphia, Mississippi, just waiting for the museum to open to be part of the exhibit. But Marty tells the story that his first few items was one of his two first items was a piece of was an artifact of Patsy Cline's and an artifact of Hank Williams that he found at just a local thrift store and in Nashville. And he recognized them, of course. You know, to the common person like you or I, we probably wouldn't know. Well, we definitely wouldn't know Patsy Cline's train case was actually one of her makeup bags. We wouldn't have known that, but he called her husband and found out that it was, and he bought it for $75. And then I think the same situation was with one of Hank Williams's actual shirts. He got the same thing. And at that point, he told me, he said that's when he realized that if somebody didn't figure out a way to collect and preserve the history of country music, then a lot of it would have been lost, because as the family as generations start going and rolling down, just pieces of artifacts get lost. And so we actually, the most recent, I think the two most recent artifacts that the Congress has purchased is the Irvin Rouse Fiddle that was used to play the Orange Blossom Special where he wrote it. We actually purchased that, and somebody at one of Marty's concerts about 3 years ago approached Marty about having an original Hank Williams guitar. And of course it was authenticated. He had it, Hank had given it to him right before he died, probably like a month before he died, and it was passed down to like a grandson, and it had just been in a storage shed. And we purchased it, of course, and then had it restored. And Marty actually plays it. If you ever see him with a guitar that's got like a little rope strap, I think it's like blue and white, that was Hank Williams' guitar.
So in the Main Street world, we talk a lot about how the public sector can't always be relied on to do everything, nor can the private sector be relied on to do everything. And so I think what's unique about Philadelphia is that there was this public investment through Visit Mississippi to acknowledge, you know, Marty Stewart and his history. And little did Philadelphia know what it would do, you know, from a catalyst standpoint from the private sector, that people are drawn to want to know that kind of history. And so now they've got this huge surge of the Congress of Country Music being developed, and I believe a hotel as well coming along with that. And so I want, Kamel, talk to us a little bit about that private sector investment, what that does for an agency like Visit Mississippi to be able to have assets to market, like how that works for you guys, because, you know, you have the whole state to market, but now you can drive people to these individual places in these communities.
Yes, indeed. And I think that is the really the crown jewel of the marker system is the community involvement and the community understanding, buying into what that investment means, you know, what it looks like, and because without it, the trail system doesn't survive. It can't. The state government can't afford to put up all the trails, finance the trails, maintain the trails, because they all are very expensive, number one, and then the maintenance of keeping up when the vinyl side fades, or so, those are thousands and thousands of dollars that reoccur. So, you know, but the big part of it is that when a community invests into it, they've got skin in the game. You know, like when we worked with you on putting the Johnny Cash marker here, the whole community was involved from a city standpoint as well as the private sector, which brings a certain energy and synergy, which makes everybody have skin in the game, which makes everybody think of it as a promotional tool for their community, which feeds the government from a tax-based standpoint as well as a retail and everyday gas, food, hotel, memorabilia stuff in your community, small business type of way. You know, for an example, the way Visit Jackson always invests into the trail. It's nothing to call Ricky or Kim and talk to them about a trail marker that we want to do that we think is great for the trail, that, you know, will honor someone and say, hey, we're thinking about putting this marker up. You know, we don't know where we're going to get the money from. They always have open ears because Jackson understands, being a nucleus of a lot of the Freedom Trail markers and Blues Trail and so on and so forth, that it feeds right back into the circle of tourism, that it feeds right back into people coming into your city, into your state, spending some money, spending some days, spending some nights, then maybe spending a summer home, then maybe relocating here. And it all starts with these small things that impact the heart and the mind of a tourist, that makes them rethink whatever they thought about Mississippi, good or bad. It makes them rethink or whatever they thought their frequency of travel here was going to be. So the private side is most definitely important.
When we had the Johnny Cash marker ceremony, the gentleman from Arkansas, from Johnny Cash's boyhood home, which we'll talk about in a few minutes about really cross-promoting across the state lines. I wrote this down because I used it later in a post. He said, people who visit trail markers spend time in a community. They get off the bypass and they get into town and they get to know the locals and they get integrated into the community. And I think, you know, that's one of the takeaways for me. And I thought, you know what, that's so right. You know, we all hear these statistics about, you know, cyclists, how much they spend and their routines and what they do, investment. But that is so true because they're following these markers for a reason, and they're looking for stories, which means they're looking for authenticity. And where are you going to find that? In your locals, and you're going to be able to talk to people at the cafe downtown or the bookstore downtown. And so they tend to really, like I said, integrate themselves into the community, and that's when they spend more money. And that obviously is the goal for all of us in the end, is impact, you know, from a financial standpoint on our communities, but also just the experience that they get then when they're experiencing hospitality like no other. And so that was just really impactful for me to hear him say that and really grasp the thought that people really are coming here for an experience. And when we were at the Johnny Cash unveiling, the markers, you'll see an example of one right here, but this is the front of it. And so the back has the story. It has a lot of text and a lot of time and effort and research goes into the production of that, but there's also photos. And just a unique story about Starkville. When we put this marker together, there was a photo of Johnny Cash in a concert at the Pike House. And it wasn't even an organized concert. I think, didn't he just end up there one night, like after another concert? And there was a photo of about 20 pikes just gathered around him, just a black and white photo. And I had seen it circulate before, and so we wanted to use that photo on the marker. And without saying too much, I'll just say we had to jump through some hoops to get the rights and to get the release to put it on the marker, because obviously, you know, they're a national organization as well as Mississippi State. And so we actually were able to do that. And we were standing back on the hill when they unveiled the marker. And I had seen Dr. Eddie Keith, who was at the university, and he was a Pike when Johnny Cash was here. And I said, Dr. Keith, were you in this photo? And he was like, yeah. And he was telling me about all his buddies that were there. They came to that marker unveiling. And we're standing on the hill watching this group of men that are probably in their 60s or 70s now. I mean, just great people. And y'all, they're just almost in tears looking at this marker with this photo on it. And we sat back and watched as they literally took themselves back to that time. You know, so it's a marker. It's a piece of metal in the ground. But what it is for them is like a capsule of a memory that they can now go back to. So they're not just going back there. They're going to take their grandkids back there, and they're going to take their sons and their daughters. And so those stories are constantly retold time after time again. So just that investment of putting a pole in the ground to honor a country music legend just impacted just so many people that are going to come back over and over and over again. And that was so meaningful to me, because that's what it's about. It's about creating a place for people to go that they can wrap memories around, so that they stay there and they spend time there. Another interesting one that we have also is Amory, Mississippi. We did the blues marker there, and they have a Vinegar Bend blues alley. And so they actually used the installation of the marker to sort of develop this interesting little pocket park that is their blues alley now. I mean, it is where they have a stage. It's right in the middle, and they have locals that come and play, and they have murals that pay homage to the culture of the blues in Amory. And it's just become kind of a center, a hub of activity that has now created the rehab of about 5 or 6 buildings around that one pocket park, because they're able to program around that theme again. Piece of metal stuck in the ground, but it honors something that community latches onto and celebrates over and over and over again. So I talked about the Johnny Cash. Tell the story of the relation with Arkansas and the Boyhood Home, and how we really, you know, you guys worked with them and what they have there, and how that cross promotion is a really unique thing with bringing people into the state, and then vice versa.
Well, when we were planning the Johnny Cash marker unveiling, which got extended because of COVID, and we could not do it, and of course, bless you, had to give it to you twice since you sneezed twice, and of course, it was going to be on the anniversary of when Johnny Cash. You should tell the story since you from here, yeah.
So, I mean, everybody knows the story about Johnny Cash, and the fact that the reason he was honored here is because he has the song Starkville City Jail. There's not many, Grammy award-winning artists that have a song that your city's name is in. Or their jail, exactly. And funny thing is, it's really not even the city jail anymore, it's the county jail. So I'll give the city a little credit for that. But Johnny Cash was playing a concert here one night and stayed at the hotel downtown, and he might have had a little too much, party libations and all of that. He was feeling real good, and so he went for a walk, and the story goes that he was picking flowers in Dr. Copeland's yard on the corner, which is right on the corner at a gateway to downtown. I don't think he was really picking flowers, but the story is that he was picking flowers. So that's what we'll just stick to. And so he was feeding the flowers, fertilizing the flowers, we'll say. And so that's the story, watering the plants. That's right. And so he was having this conversation when he was in San Quentin, right? And just started strumming this song. They arrested me in the Starkville City Jail. They threw me in there. They arrested me for picking some flowers. And they said, boy, get in my car. And there's also another story that he was in the jail. The jail cell that he was arrested in is actually still there to this day. Same bed that he slept on, the same toilet that was in there. I mean, it is intact. And so we have worked really hard to work with the sheriff's department actually to invest in kind of not memorializing it, but kind of archiving it so it's sort of like a museum. And little did we know, when we started talking about the trail marker, I called Kamel and I said, I went down to the sheriff's department to talk to them about this, and they said, you'll never believe it, but we have busloads of people that drop off here to see this jail all the time. And here I am, the tourism director, and I didn't even know that. And so I thought, dang, okay, so this is a good thing. And so he was in this jail cell with this boy that I think was like 14 or 15 at the time. I don't know what he was doing in jail. But the boy didn't have any shoes on, and from the story goes that he just gave him his shoes. He said, and he says it in the song, here, boy, have my shoes. And people in Starkville know the boy, and he's obviously grown now and still has the shoes, and we weren't able to track him down. But, you know, it's just those things that stick around, you know, the stories that are told that you get to keep up with. So that's what happened with Johnny. And he's from originally, his boyhood home is in Arkansas, and that's what I kind of wanted you to talk about.
I think where is it? Diane? There you go. Say it out. Yes. There you go. Exactly. Right. Exactly. Because the boyhood home is managed by the university. But as we were planning the Johnny Cash marker and trying to build the speaker list, because of course with any of these unveilings you want to have the right people speak, the people who were a part of the legacy if they're alive, the people who had something to do with the representatives, but more importantly, people who are really invested in the history of what that marker is about. And so as we were trying to plan the unveiling, we reached out, and I didn't know anything about the boyhood home. And so found out about the boyhood home in Dias, Arkansas, found out, it was managed by the university, and reached out to Adam Long, who was over that part of the university and over the home. And he came down on his own dime to speak about it in a very passionate, they deal with it every day, the boyhood home of Johnny Cash. So then you link in Arkansas, with the story. So yeah, when you start working on these projects and the research starts to come out about an artist, a person, or a place, or an organization that was, very instrumental in whatever that subject matter is, you don't know how far out that story is going to extend, what, people, states, our countries is going to touch, and we try to bring that all to an all-encompassing unveiling.
Same in the Delta, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was definitely going to get to that one, but I didn't want to hog the mic though. I'll tell it in a minute. Yeah, Tim, tell us something, Tim.
Okay, so here's like an interesting one. So we talk about all the different trails that there are and different ways to incorporate themes and people and places into the trails. And Tim had this really unique idea as we sat around the table, and I guess we could talk about kind of how they're selected and how that works, how it's funded. That might help people that are looking to develop a trail system. But the Neshoba County Fair, tell us about the fair and why it was identified. Why would we put a trail marker at the fair?
Sure. Yeah, we were sitting around the table at one of our many marker meetings, and what we were doing were we'd pretty much finished the slate, and Johnny Cash was supposed to be the last in 2020. Is that correct? And we were working on future markers, and one of us around the table just mentioned the fairs, and you got two fairs in one county. The Neshoba County Fair celebrated their 132nd year. The Choctaw Indian Fair celebrated their 50th year. And both of them were really rich in country music performers and people that had been performing for all walks of life. And so the decision was made, well, why not we honor a country music trail marker at both fair, but it's not individualized. It's encompassing all of the musicians that had ever played at the Choctaw Indian Fair that had or Neshoba County Fair that had gotten their start, like Loretta Lynn, Tammy Wynette, Glenn Campbell, and the list goes on. And that was kind of what the dialogue was, because both fairs have trail markers, other trail markers of their own. I know the Choctaw Indian Fair has another country music trail marker, Bob Ferguson, the one who wrote Wings of a Dove. He actually married a tribal resident from the Pearl River community, Martha Ferguson, and lived on the Pearl River community. So his country music trail marker was right there at the Choctaw Museum, so the tribal museum. So it's just really neat how all of it just kind of cross-pollinates, and you just bring in all of even more people and even more genre whenever you're trying to set those kind of stages and plan those events.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, they kind of just build momentum, like one after one, each trail that's produced, and even across the state lines, you know, referencing it as the largest outdoor museum, which I hear Craig say all the time, that momentum grows. And so you might think as a community that you just have one trail marker in your community. Not a big deal. Hopefully you're using it as an asset that you can market for people to come. But then something that you may not even know about, the Mississippi Hills Heritage Alliance has kind of caught wind of all these trail markers that are happening, and they're like, we need to put together like a trail guide. Like, we need to like really back Visit Mississippi's investment up in developing these markers and connect all of these trails. And so they've now seen these markers as a way to move people around the state. And so there's a kind of a task force committee talking about developing these culinary trails and writers trails and country music trails, and just any of the trails that you can think of, and creating the ability for people to know about them and to kind of plan their trips around them. And so that's sort of, that's community development in a nutshell. It starts with a little piece, and the momentum just grows and grows and grows. And so using them as an asset to get people to your community is wonderful, but it's even better when it's being done by a larger agency that has more funding than you do. So, I would say even if it does cost your community to put a marker there, whether it be $5,000, $10,000, it's going to pay off, in the long run with return on investment.
Along that line, that was kind of, as we were doing some of the Freedom Trail markers, that's kind of been one of the things. It was, well, we need a marker right here. Okay, well, it's going to cost us. So how are we going to raise that money? Is that a marker that we need to put at this time? And so you end up with those kind of conversations, and you get different people around the table that feel really passionate about it, or organizations that feel really passionate about it and see the need. Well, we need a marker here because of the significance. And then you start realizing, and you start putting the numbers together of how many people come to that place each year, and where you need something telling the story of its significance. And that's a lot of how we ended up with the Freedom Trail brochure that tourism created, was because you had these markers in different areas of the community, and then people were coming to the welcome centers, they come to the center of town, and they ask about these places to go to. Well, it's nice to have something. You need something to give them. And if you don't have something from the state, because I know the Blues Trail had a guide at one time, still do, and I think we're out of them. I mean, that's kind of why I thought it was past tense. I know, yeah. I'll add that to my list. But anyway, and because they want to know, they don't want to just, they were drawn to your community, but you want to also help. That's where we as Main Street organizations work together. We want to get them to everybody, because at the end of the day, that's the thing. Even though they're going to one day come to Philadelphia, Mississippi for the Congress of Country Music, it's going to have links and ties to the Grammy Museum in Cleveland, and so people are going to want to make a trip whenever they travel.
So let's kind of change gears a little bit and talk about development of the trails and identification of the markers and what will be which markers will be done. Because if I'm not wrong, the Country Music Trail kind of sat dormant for a little while and then was revived, right, several years ago. And so for a state that might not have a trail system, or maybe they have a blues trail but doesn't have like a writer's trail, what kind of where do you start with that? I mean, somebody in the Main Street office has a list of famous writers that they want to, like, where do they start? Is that something that they can go seek, funding for from the legislature? Do they need to put a board together? How are the selections made? And then tell us a little bit about how Mississippi's gotten creative with actually funding them.
Most certainly. Logistically, how most of the trail system started was from a legislative act. The best thing to do, I would say, if you were going to find a certain inroads to getting it done, is to approach your legislators and, let it be signed into a real bill that creates a legislative body or commission to preside over it. Because what you want is for an investment from, your government. You want them to, you want the governor, you want the lieutenant governor, you want the Speaker of the House to have appointment selections to be able to put in to the commission so that the legislative body backs it up, including, now that doesn't mean that you want the commission to be made up of politicos, but you do want that involvement. I mean, because for all the obvious reasons, these marker systems grow a lot of times much more rapidly than a private investment can handle, much more rapidly than, a downtown organization can handle. And once you start telling stories and you open up the opportunity for people, places, and things of a certain genre to be told, you can't cap it. Once you open that can, you've got to start being ready to tell all of the pertinent stories that make sense and that are important. And so you may think, oh, well, we're going to do a marker system and it'll probably be 15 markers. That 15 can turn into 150. Once you start digging into the history of things and the dots you didn't even know were there, start connecting. So I would say start there. Start with, the government giving a, voting and giving a legislative body to be over it, that where you can tap into some government funding. On top of that, the National Endowment of Humanities and the National Endowment of the Arts, they all have grants that, the system couldn't have started without them. And having the NEA and the NEH stamps on your trail systems makes it legit automatically. So I would say definitely seek those governmental bodies for grants. MDOT, of course you're going to want to bring in your Department of Transportation system, because you're going to be putting this where roads are, and you need them to know about it, you need them to be a part of it, you need them to protect your signs, because you can't just always put it on private property. So I would say government, which is going to come with some appointees, but you need that to have the legislative skin in the game, and funding, NEA, NEH, all types of grants, and you always want to seek private funding, but that will come as the passion for the trail starts to spread out and the arteries of it spread out into the community. You'll find more private citizens who, just like that guy who was part of the, the picture for Johnny Cash, he's probably a successful businessman now. And so him having a piece of that story, just a little piece of it, is worth something to him and worth an investment. So I would say legislative body, grants from NEA, NEH, and things like that, MDOT, and then private citizen. But on top of that, you want to start off with fully funded markers. You don't want to go into it begging communities to understand what's going to happen. You want to be able to put some examples out there so that they're able to see that it's working, and then at that point you want to have a community investment, a private match. So if, for our marker systems with the Country Music Trail, they cost around $9,200. Well, the commission will put up $4,500 if they bless the application, but then the community needs to come with $4,500. So whether that's from fundraising, private investors, what have you, that way you're putting, you're not burning the candle at both ends of a commission blowing through their funds, but you also have private investment, which gets them wanting to, be involved.
Kind of adding to that, when the decision was made to approach both of the fairs, that landed in mine and David's lap because we're the ones in Philadelphia, so we had to approach them. And you never know when you're dealing with two different entities like that are governed by two different bodies, what those boards are going to think when you start approaching them about a trail marker. And you have one concept in mind that they're going to say, and then it just completely turns out to be the other way. They were excited and actually getting the stuff together because they were afraid that they was going to have to come up with a lot of the writing on the front. Well, we have a good team that handles all of the writing for the front part, which is the easy part. They just had to come up with what they wanted to do with the pictures and stuff on the back. And I think a lot of them, both from the Neshoba County Fair side and the Choctaw Indian Fair side, learned a lot about the history and made reconnections with stuff that they had actually maybe had kind of slipped back over the years. So it can kind of come together and be a good community team effort when you get all the right players in the game.
And Tim, I want to add, just to talk about what the process is with the commission that both of you all are on, which y'all are very familiar with. But, just to let you guys know, these markers don't just happen because somebody says, hey, I like Johnny Tuck Blues Man and I got $9,000 for a marker. It doesn't work like that. It's very much vetted and voted on. So what it starts is, like I said, with the legislative commission, there was set how it was supposed to go. So we have to stick by strict guidelines. So let's say you come, you call me up and say, hey, our community had this guy who was, a wonderful blues artist. I don't think people know about him, and he did this and this and this, and we want a blues trail marker. We think he deserves it. We know he deserves it. Matter of fact, why don't you know that he deserves it, and why doesn't he have one already? Because that's usually the way the conversation ends up going, right, Ricky? It's like, hey, hey, Ricky, how you doing? Yeah, it's 9:30 at night anyway. Yeah. My man, Lonnie Brown, you don't know Lonnie Brown? Lonnie Brown should have been had a marker. I don't know why he ain't got no marker. Can you explain to me why he doesn't have a marker? Isn't that usually how the conversation go, Ricky? But, at that point, what we say is, ma'am, sir, I would like to send you a Blues Trail application, and it's very open-ended, and you just give us the narrative, where you want the marker, who the marker is for, the place or the person that is for. What was the history that ties into the country music trail or blues trail? Explain to us why they deserve a marker. And they can be as short or long as they want to, articles, anything they want to submit. I'll take that application, and then when we have a country music trail or blues trail commission meeting, we put it in front of the commission. Ahead of time, they get it in their email. They get a week or two to review it. We come, they vote on it. I'm not a voting member, but they vote on it. If they vote that they think that it is worth going to the scholars, it's not approved from the first vote. That is just an approval to go to our scholars who are on staff, who are blues or country music aficionados, historians, and if they don't know it, they know how to find it. I mean, they are true sleuths of the industry. So then it goes to their court, and then they do research on it in depth to see if they think that it is worth going to this very heralded trail system. They protect it, so it is very much protected. Then they issue an opinion to the commission. The commission then gets their opinion, which they take very heavily, of either a yes for this reason or no for this reason. And then the commission votes on it on a final, and they can either take the scholar's opinion and go with it or go against it. It's up to the commission. But that is 3 times it goes around before there's an approval or denial. And at that point, that's when the whole, let's figure out how to fund it. Let's figure out the unveiling, where's it going to go. But that conversation doesn't even start until it is going from commission to scholars, back to commission, and then a final vote. And that's yeah, it's got checks and balances.
I love that too, though, because so much of what we do in Main Street is community engagement driven. Everything is input driven through the community. Because honestly, if you just got up in a community and told everybody what they should do and what they should like and where they should go and who they should visit, you would never have any engagement at all. So much of Main Street is driven at the grassroots level and through community input. And so that's such a great way for even the state tourism office to find out about the stories that they may not even have on their radar. But also what I wanted to point out too, just from a commissioner standpoint, is really interesting to me when I first set on looking at the different applications and the people that were being selected. I mean, you're looking at, obviously these are already added, but Johnny Cash, Tammy Wynette, Leanne Rimes, Lady Antebellum. And I mean, all of those things are country music, but they're all different generations. So I don't know much of Tammy Wynette's music because I wasn't even born then, I don't think. But I know Lady A, and my 15-year-old knows Lady A as they're rebranded now. And so I think we talk about this diversity and inclusion aspect in everything that we do, and everybody finding a place in a community and being able to relate to something. And so I love the fact that the commission really heavily weighs that in. They're not just honoring, let's just take the oldest musicians and honor the oldest ones as they come through, but they're also thinking about it from a standpoint of who are we going to balance out and who we're going to do this in this round of 5 that people are going to relate to, that are going to make people interested and want to come to Mississippi. And not only that, pique their interest, that they're like, wow, I didn't know Lady Antebellum even had a connection to Mississippi. And so that storytelling component is kept at the forefront with generations that are still growing. You know what I mean? That Gen Z right now is probably not going to be interested in Tammy Wynette, but they are going to be interested in someone that is a lot younger and that they're attached to. So it really has something for everyone, and it's not just this boring history thing that kids care nothing about. But I guarantee you, if you put a Lady Antebellum marker in my town, my daughter would be all over that. She, and she'd want to go see that because that's who she relates to. So keeping that in mind as well as you make your selections, that they're vetted, but that it's also very diverse, and that you make sure you cover all the markets that you're serving so that somebody in every market can relate to those that you're choosing. Yeah. So anybody, you want to add anything else to that? So we're pretty close to time. So I think, I just hope that you guys grasp how, as Main Street, we can seem so divided between these tourism assets, this big overarching, especially like now that we're thinking of tourism as kind of like destination management. Whereas Main Street, we kind of feel like we're creating the events. I mean, how many people have heard the Main Streeters are just the event planners? You know what I mean? But taking on something like this and partnering with a very broadly oriented organization like Visit Mississippi, you become an asset for them because you're the boots on the ground. You have the local stories that they need to tell the greater Mississippi story. And so then we become these pieces of this puzzle. Look at the map. So this is the Country Music Trail website, and we wanted to show you these videos because if you've never heard Marty Stewart talk about Mississippi, you have never heard anybody tell this. It's just his love for the state is so strong, and so you can see the different areas that the markers are in, and so it's a fabric. It's like all stitched together, and that doesn't just happen. And so it's such an important Main Street thing. I think for me, there was kind of an internal battle in the city of where to put the Johnny Cash marker. And city officials think about it one way because they see things through one lens, but as a Main Street professional, you want to put the marker on the highway? Okay, that's fine. Challenge on. How am I going to take those people from the highway and get them downtown? Well, then this internal trail connected from the marker, 1 block up the hill to the jail, and then 1 more block up the hill to shop and to dine and to stay. So, because when people see stuff, they want to go to it. And so, even though it is it's a destination thing of its own, it then leads to a bigger destination management asset.
And that's kind of another unique task that we all as Main Street directors have. It's like Jennifer said, you want them to see the marker, you want them to eat, shop, and dine and stay, but if they don't stay, you want them to know that, okay, there's a marker in my cohorts community right over here, and maybe they'll be traveling to that one, shop, eat, and they may stay there. So even though you lose the money for the night, your cohort's getting it, and it's still going around, and people are still coming into your downtown, and that's the whole point of the whole issue. And that was the whole thing with the Marty Stewart Congress of Country Music that we're trying to do, is to get people to come downtown. Because as you get into cities and they're talking about bypasses, you've got to have something to get them downtown. And whereas I may not be able to get Jennifer to see a display of Tammy Wynette, hopefully there's somebody that connected to her that would love to see that, and I can get them to there, and I can get another connection that she likes, that maybe Johnny Cash's original black suit, she might like to see that, or Patsy Cline's boots that she was wearing during her plane when she was in the plane crash. Something like that that might enhance somebody to come and look at something.
And Tammy Wynette's another great story about that too, with the marker in Tishming, it's way up north, and now they just unveiled like a museum or something there recently, I believe, like the gates, So anyways, it's a really interesting dynamic when you start talking about the trails and how they can move people around your community and create economic impact and catalyzation for growth in your downtown. So I hope that you guys have learned something, and we're happy to take questions. That you are so right, because especially in Mississippi, I'm the community development director, so I work with the local communities, and most of them they hardly have a tourism commission. I mean, obviously a town of 1,000, and so oftentimes if they do even have a tourism tax, the Main Street director serves kind of one and the same. It's a one-stop shop, and so it's hard for them to capitalize on a lot that they can get from Visit Mississippi, or hard to even know how to kind of fit in. And things like these trails break it down and make even the smallest community get a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the pie, and become part of this bigger story that we tell as a state. So that is so, so true. And I don't think we have time, but we didn't get into that, with the whole international aspect that comes from it. Cade's from Cleveland, and they have the Grammy Museum, so she can talk about all that all the time. Here in Starkville, it's not random to hear a foreign language because we have the university, but if I'm sitting at the guest room and I hear an Irish person, I'm going to be like, what are you here for? And so for Cade, that's probably every day in your community, because you have that asset that's been built on culture and on music, and it's cross promoted. So I think we had another question.
So do you think that application would be this, I could use that same
Oh, definitely. We use the, in most of the time I was saying person, place, or thing because we have trail markers that honor train stations, train depots, because that train depot, it may or may not still be there, but the remnants may be there, and that may be, you know, that was a nucleus where lots of Delta or North Mississippi blues artists got on the train to go outside of Mississippi, and that train depot was famous for guys and ladies meeting up and trading, you know, stories and trading songs, and it became a community within itself that proliferated our music out to the rest of the world. So, and things like grave sites, birthplaces, you know, radio stations, places where organizations was. So that application is really so wide open. It just says, tell us your story. That is basically what that does. Yeah, email me. I'll send it right to you. You can copy and paste. Yeah. Well, yes. We have we've been working with an ad agency, Hammonds and Associates, out of Greenville, Mississippi, that has, from the start, for all of our marker programs, have been our project management manager. So they, when we decide to do a trail, then they partner with us. They pull the scholars together to pull in the information. They have a graphic artist, wonderful, wonderful lady. I don't know what I would do without Wanda Clark. Oh, yeah. Yes, yeah. Oh my God, Wanda Clark, who is the graphic artist, and they in conjunction with the scholars tell the literary and the pictorial story of whatever the subject matter is. On a vinyl side, on the back, that's the more extensive story. That's the part that has to be maintenance more than not. And on the front of the marker is the casted, forged metal shorter story. Yes, well, they project management. The foundry, they design it. The foundry we use is Siwa. That's I forget what state they're in, but they're in the north part of America. But they cast it, so you're going to want to find, depending on the style and material you use, you're going to need to find a somewhere to forge it and cast. So you're going to need a place like that.
And it needs to be a reputable company because you don't want, you're going to have wear and tear, and you're going to have people that come to your office one day and say, you know that marker that you, and then they go, you know that marker you had on, sometimes they say, had? Yeah, we backed into it. So, you're gonna get those stories, and you're gonna get those things happen. I know we ran over, and it was. No, one of my Main Street board members ran into the Marty Stewart marker one Christmas parade with a ATV that they thought that they had plenty of clearance, and I was actually driving by them, and I heard a ping, and I looked and I was like, oh boy. Yeah, hey, and anyway, so but the funny thing about that one is, I grabbed it real quick because it had the way it broke off, it had a sharp shred, and we was fixing to start a Christmas parade, and I just knew somebody was going to run into it, so I just grabbed it real quick and put it in my truck. Well, I didn't tell the police chief about it, so the next morning there's a warrant out for somebody stole the Marty Stewart mark. I'm like, no, it's in the back of my truck. but you're gonna get all of that with it.
And that's a good point, though, if you are thinking about starting any kind of system like that, is to keep in mind the budgets for the maintenance and upkeep. I know a couple. Yeah, a couple years ago, Camille, you were emailing just begging local tourism offices to go check their markers to make sure which ones needed to be redone, and they're constantly getting run over or sometimes even stolen. So you want to account for that upkeep that's going to have to go. If you want to look at a real actual model of one, you can go, it's right down the hill where we're going to be at tonight for the party. I'll just give a little plug for the Country Music Trail marker. the party is going to be up on Main Street, and north of that, about 2 blocks, at the corner of Jackson and 182 is the Johnny Cash marker. So you can actually see the marker, and it's new and in great condition. So it's close by there. I think we probably have time for one more question. Yeah, go ahead.
Good question, the guy that knew how to pronounce Dias. Where are you from? Oh, nice, nice. Welcome. I'm glad you brought that up because I didn't think we'd have time to mention it. But part of the system is you got to stay current with technology and the new traveler. It can't just be a system of static markers that are not going to appeal to the new traveler. So what we are doing is we are developing, if you've heard of augmented reality, so we are working on, when I say these videos that we are putting together are of Netflix quality, it could easily be strung together into a documentary and be on Netflix and be, a top-rated program. So right now we are in the process of developing a cutting-edge country music trail app to go with the website. What they talking about?
It's Randy Wilson.
Oh. Randy Wilson. Hey, Randy. But so yeah, we're developing high-end videos, a very interactive experience when people come to the trail marker. Of course, we have an app that's got GPS and all of that built into it, but we are revolutionizing all of that to keep up with technology because, like I said, it just can't be a clinical, stale marker. It's got to tell the story, but you've got to make it interactive for all travelers.
And just to build on that a little bit, and Ricky, you might can pipe in too. We were just talking about that from Mississippi Tourism Association standpoint. All of these different trail systems, all of these assets, staying up to date with technology. Some things like Bandwango that allow you to develop an app system that you can load. Even if you developed your own, depot trail, can load right up into that so that people who are traveling and that are geofenced into your area found out about it and can search it. So the technology that can be used to make sure that you're not relying on the visitor that wants the brochure in Tim's office, because those days are slowly going away, that people can actually find your system digitally as well. So yeah, any other questions? Well, guys, thank you so much. And again, Kamel is with Visit Mississippi. He's very easy to find and very helpful. And Tim is in Philadelphia. Easy to, you're on black, so they can't, you wouldn't be, yeah. You're dark, you're camouflaged. But Tim is in Neshoba County, Philadelphia, Main Street, and Tourism Office. So they are a wealth of information and knowledge. If you need anything from them or from me, and do feel free to go see that marker. They're a labor of love, but they are really, really neat to look at and just realize that those stories are right here in our own communities. So thank y'all so much.